All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the stream. I hope everybody is doing well tonight. We are going to pick up where we left off last time, which is actually we had finished up exporting our item data, and we got the re-import working in the editor here. So I think this is far enough along that we can actually start on reading this into the game code. So that we can at least kind of wrap this up at least for now, because this is one of the things that I wanted to get out of the way early on before we actually start making some mechanics, just so that we don't have to set up all of this when we get ready to start tying in items and things like that. So we could just design the system. We already have this database in place to pull from. So with all of that said, I think what we're going to do more than likely is we're going to wind up essentially recreating the import code that we have in the JavaScript version of this in C, except we're going to leave it in the very data-oriented format that the bin is on disk. So that's the plan for tonight. Before we jump into that, though, I do want to just take a quick second to thank the supporters of the channel, beginning with our elite partner, Javier Alazaran. That is the top tier of subscription over there on YouTube memberships and Patreon, followed by our partners, Gerbolis Inc. and Matt Osgard, followed by finally our supporters, who are the other tiers of support over there over on YouTube memberships, Patreon, as well as Twitch subscriptions. So thank you all very much for your support. It is greatly appreciated, and it helps me cover the expenses associated with this project, and helps me cover things like hosting fees, software licenses, eventually assets, right? So I'm saving a lot of those funds to reinvest into this game. All right, so the last thing I want to say on that front also is I do want to thank the viewers, each and every one of you guys, whether you're joining us here on the YouTube side, the Twitch side. Without you guys, this project would not exist. So I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Thank you very much for being here and following me and joining in on this journey. It's been a lot of fun so far. Got a lot of work to do, and we're going to continue that right now. Nympheus, good to see you. Hello. Ruche, good to see you as well. All right. So, with all of that said, let's go ahead and start talking about how we're actually going to read this in. So we're going to handle this a little bit differently than we handle most other resources and assets. Now, most resources in the engine, like textures, for example, pull from an image asset, and that image asset sort of has a deserializer, or binary static meshes have a deserializer that looks something like this. We're going to reuse this concept, except we're not going to pipe the item database through the resource system. What we're going to do is we are going to load the asset as is, directly from the asset system. And we are then going to take that asset and use it as our database, right? So it's going to essentially, the memory is already in the layout we need when loaded from the file. So all we really have to do is basically just load that in from disk, bang out a structure for it really quickly, and then we should be good to go. So we're going to essentially treat it a little bit like these deserializers do, except we're going to do this in our game code, right? Because this is a game-specific thing. So we're going to load it as just a typical binary asset, which will give us sort of a K asset like this. And then we can go ahead and extract some properties out of it that'll tell us how much memory we need to allocate, things like that. And then from there, we can go ahead and make copies of the memory out of various blocks of the data. Or actually, we don't even really have to do that. We could actually just set up pointers, right? At least for the items, probably not the strings. The strings are going to be a little bit more complicated than that. Not much, though. LSR, good to see you. How's it going? Welcome. Okay, so with that said, I think probably the way that we're going to do this is, let's see, where do I want to put this? I suppose I could put it in let's just have a look here. I suppose we could put this in. I hesitate to put it in main, right? But maybe we put it here for now. We can always move it later, I suppose. There's already a lot in here, but I think let's just kind of put it here for now, and we can always, like I said, we can always move it later when we get ready to formalize it into, you know, a centrally accessible database, as it were. Give me just 1 second here. Is my stream lagging for you guys at all, or is it coming through pretty clear? I think we should be okay, but comes through clear on Twitch. Okay, that's the one I was more concerned about. YouTube says it's good, but Twitch is kind of giving me the unstable warning here. Okay. All right, perfect. Thank you guys for confirming that. All right, so I guess we'll put it here. And what I'm going to do is we're just going to set this up as a void for right now. We're going to say game import. Why don't we do init ItemDB? And I know that's probably not the name we're going to stick with, but we don't have another name for the ItemDB for right now, so we're just going to roll with that for now. So we'll pass a pointer to the application, and then we'll go all the way down to the bottom here, and we'll just put it down here for the sake of being able to find it easily. Been pulling my hair out trying to get shaders working properly with SFML. Oof, that sounds annoying. 15th or something like that. Congrats, Spiro, in 15th place. Good job, buddy. Appreciate that. So right now you're working in the game code, not the engine code. Correct. Yeah. And that's going to be, we're going to be doing some going back and forth. I actually have some things that we're going to have to jump back into the engine for a bit here shortly on some stuff, but I don't want to discuss that tonight because I don't have a full plan on how I want to attack that. But yeah, we are going to be jumping back to the engine. We're going to be doing a lot of jumping back and forth. And I think the jumping back and forth will lessen as time goes on, but there are going to be things that we're missing and things that we need to add to the engine, things we need to change in the engine as we're developing. So I want to get the ItemDB at least stood up and readable and maybe even queryable. And then we're going to jump back to engine code to do some stuff. YouTube's also good. Thank you, Spiro. I appreciate you confirming that. Okay, so ItemDB. The first thing we need to do is actually get a asset system. Let's see. I don't think we actually have that included here. So let's go ahead and get that in here. Include systems asset system. We're going to do asset system request, right? And we're going to want, let's see, app. It's going to be engine state. I guess I do have to kind of get... No, I think I can do it this way. Maybe I should just do... You know what? I'm just going to do it this way. Engine systems get asset state, right? We'll take this. Put that there. And then the asset request info, we're going to have to fill out. So asset request info. Kuju raiding with a party of 82. Wow, that's a big raid. Thank you so much for the raid, Kuju. How's it going? For those of you who don't know, Kuju is creating a game called Fat Goblins in Jai that is looking freaking boss. You guys should definitely check that out. If you aren't following Kuju, definitely do it. Yeah, thank you so much for the raid. Welcome, raiders. You got the bots working. Awesome. I was thinking that was going to be a lot of work, but I guess you kind of knocked it out pretty quickly. Just a few things left to do, and then to make them less stupid. Oh, that's always the fight, right? Is to make them less stupid. Fair enough. Very, very painful 2 weeks. Yeah, I bet it was. My stuff's going good. We just actually got started here, so we've only been streaming for like maybe 10 minutes or so. So what we're doing today is actually the item editor that we've been working on to date. We're actually working on taking the binary file that this generates and reading it into our game code now. And so that's kind of the first part of getting what we call the ItemDB working. It's just sort of our database for items, localized strings, and a whole bunch of other stuff eventually too. A bunch of our systems are going to rely on it. And it's sort of like a flat file database. So we're starting to put in at least reading that asset in now, mapping the memory, and then we'll probably get into a little bit of querying to get data from that. That's kind of what we're up to now. For the sake of the raid, for any of you who aren't familiar with what we're doing as a whole, we are, up till recently on this channel, we were making a game engine from scratch using C and Vulkan as our initial rendering backend. And so this kind of started off as a tutorial series on a way to build a game engine. It's not the only way to build a game engine. It's not necessarily even always the right way. It's just it's a way of doing it, right? And so the idea is that we try different things out. It's supposed to be sort of an educational type of series. We build everything from scratch. And we try different things, and some of those things work, some of those things don't. So it started off as kind of a tutorial series. It morphed formats. Now we have this sort of live stream format that we're here on now. We do simulcast to YouTube and Twitch. As for the engine itself, it is free and open source, which means it is hosted on GitHub. I could drop a link here in chat so that you guys have that. That link will bring you to this website, which is sort of the central hub. And so on GitHub, you'll see here that all the source code is available, and it's Apache 2.0 licensed, which means that you can use it for whatever you please, personal or commercial, does not matter. There will not ever be any sort of licensing fees or royalties of any kind ever. The engine itself will always be free. That being said, it is very early days. It's not something I would recommend using right now. We are making the very first game with this engine. And so we're sort of breaking into it, breaking it in, finding pain points, all of that kind of stuff, right? That's kind of the phase we're in now. And so here's just a couple of aged screenshots. I really need to get some new ones. I think once we get a little bit further with this game development portion of it, we'll have some better screenshots. But we've got a basic PBR pipeline with cascading shadow maps, the ability to render UTF-8 text as well as bitmap fonts. The ability to, do your basic editing within a scene, selecting an object, rotating it, translating it, scaling it, things like that. We've got a number of systems in place. This does run on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS desktop platforms. And so, yeah, that's essentially the engine. And then we're using this engine to create a game which is called Shadows of Illumina. Now, this is also we're doing the entire development for this on stream. Some of the less exciting things I'll probably do offline just to keep things moving, but including the design of this game. So we actually have written up this document on stream as well, designing the game from scratch. So it's a 3D isometric action RPG. And so we've got a whole bunch of lore and setting and stuff here that we've kind of outlined out. We have a bunch of wants for like mechanics, attributes and stats, resources, crafting, weapon types, armor types, all that kind of stuff, right? We've even defined some control schemes and stuff like that in here. And so we've got some, looks like my dark reader is kind of foobarring the way that this looks. So pardon the flashbang for a second. Okay, I guess it's going to invert the colors of my images, which is kind of sucky. So you'll have to pardon the flashbang. Essentially, we have some screenshots of some different art directions I'm thinking about going. I haven't really picked one yet, but just as some inspiration, we've got a few different ideas in terms of art direction. We're going to talk about that a little bit more here shortly in one of the streams coming up here shortly. But there's just some stuff in here that we've got a lot of conceptual work. We also have done a lot of mapping for what the world itself is going to look like. So this is the world map, right? The world is called Illumina. So we've got a few continents here. It's not completely done yet either, but you can kind of see how the zones are broken up, and we've got a decent amount of lore started for this actually. So that is basically what we're doing here. Right now, specifically, we are actually building. We've started building what I call an item editor, an ItemDB. And so this allows us to create different items in the system where we can define different properties for it, descriptions, things like that, right? With different item types for weapons, you can have different equipment classes and equipment slots and things like that. All these different kinds of properties. And then string localization as well. So this database will also contain a whole bunch of strings. The example I always like to use is, where we've got replace tokens like this, heals for use effect.health. This would query essentially a number out of the database eventually. This string would essentially have a replace token here. So this is what it looks like in English, and then this is what that same string looks like in Japanese, for example. So our three languages right now are just English, Brazilian Portuguese, and then Japanese, just for reference, right? So this entire thing can be exported out into a bin file, which is this here. The editor, the item editor can read that in, and then we are at the point of having our C game code read that in right now. And that's actually what we've just started tonight. So I hope all of that makes sense. I know that was kind of a lot to take in, but that's kind of where we're at. Let's see. Was the game engine made with a loose game idea in mind, or was it very general purpose? So it's fairly general purpose, and that's actually one thing that we're going to talk about in the upcoming streams, because we do have some more engine work to do, right? The engine's far from complete. There are some things where I was just like, remember in the beginning I said there were some things that work and some things that don't. There are a few places where I feel like I've made it a little bit too general. And so we're going to backpedal on some of those things just to simplify our code base a little bit. And so that's one of the things that we want to do. So it is kind of general, but we're probably not going to have everything be so open-ended in general that it adds a lot of weight to the engine. That's what I want to try to avoid, right? And we kind of started going down that path a little bit, and I'm gonna rein that back in. Yeah, I mean, the idea is that you should be able to make several different types of games with it. We are going to have an in-game editor for this as well that we have to build, but that's going to be built along with the game, and so it'll be a game-specific editor in this case, and then we'll maybe strip out some of the generic components of that editor once we're done with this game and make a generic editor out of that. But that's kind of the direction that we're going, right? We're just trying to write what we need and only what we need, with the exception of a few places where we sidetrack to say, well, this is one way of doing this. Here's how this would look. Thank you guys for the follows, by the way. I really appreciate that. Let's see. We got a couple comments over on the YouTube side as well. good to see you streaming. Been following along from the beginning, and it's been amazing. I appreciate that. And welcome to the stream. Thank you for following along, and thank you for the feedback. I really appreciate that too. Been following along since the beginning too. Series is incredible. Eventually, it's going to help me make my dream game. Still working on the engine/UI stuff. Fair enough. Well, again, I appreciate the feedback and you following along, and I'm glad that it's helping you guys. That's awesome. That was the whole point. So, thank you guys for that. Okay. So, what we're working on right now, like I said, is we're trying to go ahead and read in that ItemDB file. So the first thing that we have to do is perform an asset request. So part of that, we want this request to be synchronous because we don't want to have to provide a callback and all that kind of stuff. This is one of those things I'm okay with having it be asynchronous asset request. And just for a little bit of context, our asset and resource system is not currently multi-threaded, but it's designed to be multi-threadable, so it can be jobified. And so setting this synchronous flag essentially says when this request this asset system request is complete, at that point, after that function, it will be loaded and ready to go. Versus if synchronous was false, that may not be the case. Okay, so let's see, asset name. In this case, we want to do kname creates, and we're just going to do ItemDB. And the package name is going to be package name Shadows of Illumina. That's going to be the game package that we're going to load that from. Let's see. I don't think we need any import parameters for this at all, so that's fine. Oh, the only other thing though, we might actually have to provide a callback to this because this doesn't return an asset pointer. That's one thing I need to fix actually, because our resource system does, but this system does not. So I do need to do that, unfortunately. We also need kname create around this. Okay, so I guess let's make another one here. Let's go to this. Let's see, callback. We need a function pointer that looks like that. So put this here. And we will say that this is, what do I want to call this? I guess we could do ItemDB on loaded. Right? And so here we can do callback equals ItemDB on loaded. Oops, I don't want that. All right. So what this will do is that'll kick off this, and then it'll automatically call this callback, which will actually give us the loaded asset here. We also probably should provide a listener, right? So the listener is going to be the application. That's how we're going to be able to get the game state. So we need that. So the listener instance is just going to be app. Let's see, is there anything else? Actually, I don't think there is anything else we need. Auto release, I'm just going to leave that as false. We don't ever want to release this. Yeah, that's it. Okay. All right, so request the binary file. Oh, did we... I didn't do asset type, I thought so. We need to include that it's a binary asset. Okay. So, once we have this, we have a k-asset binary structure that we can use. So we could say binary asset equals, we'll just cold cast asset, right? And then the other thing that we'll do is we'll say application app equals application listener instance, right? So we have access to that. And then we can actually use, that to get the actual state. So we've done that a couple of times up here. It's past all this stuff. What's the example I want to use here? So we could probably use, I guess we could probably just use game state directly, right? That might be the way to do it, actually. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. Let me think for a second. So we should probably do... That's right, we changed all of this stuff. I forgot about that. Okay. So actually all we need to do is go into application and define what... or actually the game state, rather. And we need to define what the ItemDB looks like, right? So this is our sort of game state, or our application state, if you will. So I guess I could put it... Should I put it here or in the actual game state? I feel like this belongs in... I kind of feel like this belongs in game state, but maybe not. No, I'm going to put it in application state. I want it a little bit higher up hoisted than that. Okay, so we have a lot of our types that we've defined over on the other side, over on the item editor side. So we have our equipment class, our equipment slot, all of that stuff. Here's some effect type stuff. We're not using that yet. So our DB items, this is what our items DB is going to look like, right? So I think we've already, I'll have to make sure that this lines up with the, I'll have to make sure that this lines up with what the editor is actually outputting, because I think we've changed the sign on some of these things. So we'll have to verify that. And then DB string values is all here as well. So we'll have to... Okay, it looks like we set up everything we need. All we really need is a structure that wraps all this stuff. Okay, so let's do typedef struct, and we're going to call this ItemDB. Whoops, if I spelled typedef correctly. Right, and ItemDB is going to have DB items. I'm not sold on these names, for the record. So it's going to be items, and then we have DB string values, strings, right? And actually this is going to be languages. And each language is going to have a DB string values, which is essentially just going to have an array of strings. I'm not 100% sure I'm going to keep it that way. We may have to do a little bit of re-architecturing of what these structures look like, but like ultimately this is kind of what we're going for. So all this ItemDB stuff actually technically needs to come before our application state, or we do a struct, for declared struct pointer, which I think I'm honestly okay with. I think I might just do it that way so that we don't have to move all that stuff around. So I guess I'll go up here to the top. Actually, have we done any of this anywhere else? No, we haven't. Okay, so I guess I'll come up here to the top and I'll do struct ItemDB, and then in, let's see, not game states, application states. I guess we could put it in right here. I guess we'll do struct ItemDB, and I'm just going to call this DB. And then we should be good to go there. So what we'll need to do now is go back to Illumina main. And when we go to process this, the first thing we're actually going to want to do is we're going to want to say app state db equals k-allocates. We'll do k-allocate type, and we'll do item db, and then we'll do mem tag game, right? So that'll be where the item DB is stored, and then we'll essentially take all of the data out of this binary asset, and we will store it in the item DB. I suppose in the item DB we should probably also hold a k-asset binary pointer in there so that we can free that when this is destroyed. So let's go ahead and add that. We'll do struct k-asset binary, and then we'll do db asset, right? And I'm probably gonna have to forward declare that, maybe. Right, so we can do app states db db asset equals binary asset, right? And then I guess for convenience, we can do item db equals app state db, so we don't have to keep typing app state db. Okay. Let me go ahead and catch up on chat because it looks like I have a few. Let's see. Brayden, good to see you. Good to see you as well. Let's see. Oh, wait, my chat scrolled. Okay. Have you or do you work in the games industry? Did you learn engine dev from dev work or just as a hobby? Using Vim, very nice. Yeah, this is NeoVim. So I have worked in the game industry before. I worked in the industry making engines specifically, and games as well, on those engines, but proprietary engines. I did that for about 5 years. But I have also been doing it for 15 years on my own. Mostly just contract work and that kind of thing. Now I do something else that's completely unrelated, right? Because I got tired of working crazy hours all the time, doing it professionally. So now I do something that's 40 hours a week, but and I do this as sort of my hobby at the moment. Singing, good to see you as well. Let's see. Why am I seeing HTML and C in the same screen? It does not compile to WASM yet, no. So what you're seeing over here is something that we just built, which is a item editor. So we built a small utility. This is a game-specific utility that is not going to be released to the engine. It's not part of the engine. It's actually part of the game code that contains a database editor, essentially. It's a custom database that we're writing where we can create items of different types, select their properties and things like that, add new ones, and then also contain, create and use and edit strings, localized strings. So we have 3 languages that we're going to support off the bat, and we can add more. So right now we have English, Brazilian, Portuguese, and Japanese. So, we have different localized strings that are by ID for each language. So we've got that as well. So the idea is that this program essentially exports a binary file that contains all of this data in it in a quickly searchable format. And we are now adding the code to our engine, sorry, not our engine, our game code to actually read that file in, that asset in, process it, and then we'll be able to query those items from our game code. So that's kind of why you're seeing this here. In fact, I don't even need that on the screen at the moment. But that's why you were seeing both. That's kind of what we're doing. How do you serialize, deserialize your game states? I always find it non-trivial, no matter how much it's just a case of going between JSON or whatever encoding and engine state. So we're not actually doing it at the moment. But the way that I've got it organized for when we do have save game data, because we haven't gotten there yet, is if we actually take a look at, I guess probably, let's just go here. So we have a couple of different things. We have application state, which is sort of the state of the overall application, right? And that is specific to the application. The application in this case is our game. The engine can be consumed by multiple different types of applications. So eventually we're going to have a freestanding editor, which is a different application, which has completely different state components and requirements than a game, right? So we have our application state, which is sort of the application-wide state, right? So it contains things like our camera, our key maps, stuff like that. And then we also have some stuff in here for game states. And this is going to be specific things having to do with the game-specific logic itself and state of the game. And so game state is comprised of two things, and we're treating serializable data differently than just your typical data. So like if we go into our player states, for example, we have all of these different states that are, our current state as far as what is actually currently happening in the game at any given frame. And then we also have a serializable state, which holds things that are going to be written to disk, right? So it's going to hold things like how many points we have into strength, agility, mind, vitality, inventory, equipped gear, what quests we've completed, things like that. So, we don't have to store all of the player state or the game state. So there's, two different layers of states. There's the serializable state, and then there's the actual, sort of running state. And that's kind of how we're splitting that up. So we don't actually have this writing out to anything because we're not far enough into development where that really matters. We probably won't be for a while, and that's okay. But yeah, that's essentially what that is going to do. Let's see. You typed lane gauge. Yeah, I probably did. You're right. Thank you. I mistype things all the time. Dyslexia hits me hard constantly. Maybe wrote languages instead of... Oh, yeah. I think this is what you were talking about down here. Yeah. Thanks for the answer. Also, it doesn't look like you're using an ECS. Any reason? Yeah. So that's actually another thing I'm going to talk about in a future stream. But I tend to call ECS Entity Complication System because it tends to be overkill for most games. It will indeed be overkill for this game too. We don't need it. We don't need that kind of composability. ECS systems tend to work best with, when you have large teams of people that are sort of working on the same stuff. I'm doing all of this by myself, and I want to keep the code base as light and efficient as possible. So our scene right now has a concept of nodes and attachments, which even that is actually more complicated than I want it to be. So I actually want to roll the complexity back of that a little bit and just have flat nodes. So we're going to wind up changing our scene again a little bit to simplify it. But yeah, we're not using any sort of ECS, and we're not going to. It's just not necessary for most independently developed games, or rather simple games. It's not really required. It's really only you really only need it, and I say need in air quotes. You really only need it for really large teams and things like that. It's not something that I suggest people use by default, right? I know all the big box engines have it, right? And that's kind of the way that they say is the right way to do it. But in reality, it winds up adding way more complexity to your code base than you actually need. So can you tell us, how does a quaternion work? Man, that is not a quick question, but we've gone over rotations on the channel in our previous videos. But what I would suggest you do, give me a second. Have a look at this channel, and I'll link it for you here in chat. If you need any explanation on math stuff, period, take a look at this channel. This is one of the best resources out there, and he explains it way better than I ever could. So there's certain things that I'm just like, you know what? Let somebody else explain that, because they've already done a really good job of it. So yeah, I would definitely say check out three blue, one brown, for sure. Okay, let's see. Do you like to use union tag sum types for state machine implementation? Depends on the state machine. Depends on the requirements, right? We do use it for our vector types. Most of this is used for like field aliasing, but yeah, we use it for this. We also use it for our event system, where we have an event context that we pass along with an event, where we have all of these different types of properties that we can pass along. So this is another example of where we use unions. So yeah, I'm a fan of them for sure. Let's see. Do you think using object pools and managing it yourself is a good alternative to ECS? Think about this the other day too. It can be, but again, like most things in programming, the answer is it depends. It depends on the problem you're trying to solve and what the data you're trying to transform or use needs, right? Because again, there's no one size fits all solution. And ECS tries to be that, and it's just not. But yeah, I mean, object pools definitely are a very useful thing for like things like bullets is the example I always use, right? Like especially in like bullet hell games, like an object pool is perfect for that. Now you said you use nodes for data. I'm going to take a look at your implementation. Yeah, so we have this concept of this is what a scene file looks like currently, right? So we have this concept of nodes, and each one of these nodes, this is a node, right? Each one of these nodes can have attachments, right? So each node has a name, and then it can have attachments. And then those attachments have a particular type, right? So we have a skybox attachment here. We have a directional light attachment here. Here is an example of a single node called spawn points that has children nodes, each of which have a name and a transform or an X form, right? And then we have down here we have like a player that we've put in here with an X form, and it has children, right? And it's got a mesh child, right? That has two attachments, a static mesh and a hit sphere. And then we have another one here that has a node with a static mesh test cube with a volume a sphere volume attached to it that has a command, right? And then here's a static mesh one, and then here's a water plane, right? And so the thing that I started seeing as I was doing this is like the nodes themselves are kind of useless, right? They don't really, they're just a bag is all they really are. There's not really much point to having this kind of thing, when really what we want is we just want a skybox, or we just want a directional light, or we just want a hit sphere, or we just want a static mesh, right? And so what we're probably going to wind up changing to, because I've done a lot of going back and forth on this, is we're just going to have specialized types of nodes, right? So we'll have nodes that have some base properties, and then we'll have a static mesh node, a volume node, a hit sphere node, things like that, a skybox node, a water plane node, things like that. And then each of those node types will be governed by a registered system that registers with the scene, so that they can handle their data. So it's kind of like, instead of having to have these attachments to nodes and things like that, we just have the nodes. And the nodes can be parented to one another, so we can create a scene graph out of them, but we don't have to have all the attachment stuff and complexity that goes into this. So we're going to be changing up zones again to simplify it. And we're also going to set it up in a manner that makes it a little easier to query and whatnot. Because almost all the time, we're always going to know the types of nodes we have, the data that's in those nodes. And if we don't know that type, then like we probably need to stop and think about like, why don't we know that type? We don't need the ability to add like user node types in here. If we need that, then maybe we need to, extend the engine, not, just have this sort of open free system that can just be extended on into oblivion, and then we somehow have to support that and try and reason about the data as we're going through and updating our scene and trying to draw it and stuff like that. So yeah, it's kind of a long, deep discussion that we need to have about that, but anyway. Thank you for the follows, by the way. Appreciate that. Let's see. Sorry if I'm asking a lot. No worries. How are these nodes stored in the scene? Is it all allocated together? Just thinking about the memory. So that is part of the problem, is like we kind of did, when we initially built the scene, remember we started as like this tutorial based thing, right? Where like everything was sort of segmented. And so that's come with a little bit of tech debt that we've got to resolve. And this is one of those tech debt areas. We do have them segmented by type, right? So we do have blocks of memory for each type of node, or node attachment at this point. But it's far from ideal, right? And so that's another thing that we want to address, is we want to have it laid out in a very sort of data-oriented memory layout, instead of, kind of what we have now, which is ostensibly not that. Find that the industry at large is running away from languages like from C to languages like Rust, Zig, or Odin. Love C, but would also like to give your opinion. So, yeah. That depends, right? Like, yes, there's lots of things that are going towards Rust, but I think it's a bit of a fad at the moment, right? Zig or Odin, I think they're great attempts to move forward, right? But I still don't think they are a replacement for C. I don't see it. No pun intended, right? The industry at large still uses C++ as a standard, right? I used C here because it's a simpler language. It's what I prefer. There's a lot of C++ isms that I don't like. We've discussed that at length on the channel. But, in terms of industry standard, the industry standard is still very much C++. And I don't think, especially in the games industry, I don't think you're going to see any major move away from that anytime soon. There's lots of of projects out there being done in other languages. But if you look at the industry as a whole, it's still very much C++. And I would say a lot of it even is what I would call C++ light, which is basically C like C++. Let's see. Currently compiling a larger C++ project on a Pentium 3. Starting to see the advantages of C. Love your stuff. Yeah, so compilation time is a big one, for sure. Pentium 3, eh? That's like what? That's like Windows 98 era. In fact, I had a Windows 98 machine that was a P3. Taking me back. All right. Maget how's it going? Good to see you. You use problem-oriented C++? There you go. That's it. That's the way. That's why even though I prefer the famous C-flavored C++, it's worth it to learn deep C++ isms. Yeah, exactly. Again, it all depends on what you want to do, right? If you want to do that stuff professionally, you need to know C++ in and out. But I usually do suggest people learn C first and then jump to C++ rather than the other way around. P3 runs NetBSD though, not Windows 98. Yeah, I was just thinking like in terms of like time, right? I mean, I ran Windows 98 on mine when I had it back then. Like, I think it was a Pentium 3 450, if I remember correctly. And it was a Dell, back when Dell was actually still okay. But yeah, yeah, if I were running a P3, obviously I wouldn't run Windows 98 these days. I'd probably do the same thing and use something much lighter weight. Okay, so let's see, ItemDB. All right, so we need to, I guess probably the first thing is we're going to go ahead and take care of the items first. So we'll do that. Let's see. I really moved around the code base here. Let me see. Where were we? Here we go. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to have to do actually is we're going to have to extract the header information out of this, right? So the first thing that we're going to want to do is similar to what we did on the JavaScript side, we're going to have a U64 offset equals 0. And we're going to do binary asset header equals binary assets, right? Binary asset header. Okay. And so the first thing that we're going to want to check in that is, I guess we could do, we'll do some k-infos here, right? We'll do k-info, and we'll say ItemDB file version, right? And then we'll output header version, right? And then we also have, let's see, we have type, the magic, and then data block size. So we need to extract those. So we'll do magic equals, right? And then we want the magic number. This actually needs to be, whoops, yeah, hex formats, right? And then we have, let's see, what was the other type, right? So we should probably do that first. We'll say if header type, right, is not equal to asset type, I guess k-asset type binary. So what we'll do is we'll say loaded ItemDB file is not a binary file. Now, chances are we probably would have already hit this error before here, if this is the case, right? So maybe I guess we won't worry too much about that. In fact, actually, I'm going to take this and put it down here after our basic error checking, so that we don't set that up sooner than we really need to. Parse asset. Okay, so we'll validate that the type is correct. The version, I'm just going to spit that out for now. We do need to, we can validate the magic as well, right? So we'll validate that the magic number in it is, let's see, where is the type def for that? Where do we put that? That's the resource magic. I don't want to use that one though. That's the old one, I think. Asset magic. Here we go. So that's in K asset types. Okay. So, right. So if it's not that, then file does not have the expected magic number in the header. All right. So we have that. Okay, so there's the file version, and then the last is going to be the data block size, right? So we'll say data block size. Okay. Okay. So now that we have this stuff, now we should probably actually start taking a look at the rest of the file, right? So what we'll need to do is the rest of the file starts after the header. So we should probably also do, let's see, I think that's a U64, U32. Glad I checked. U32 data block size equals header data block size. Okay. So what this basically means is you have the binary file is in two segments. We have the header that contains, the binary file header that contains all of this stuff. And then all the data that comes after that. So the reason that we want this is we want to know, we can use this to check and see if the offset that we're keeping a running offset of as we progress through the file. We can use this to determine if that has actually exceeded the limit of this, right? And if it has, then we know that we've got some sort of file format issue, and we can try and actually pick that up before, just clobbering memory or something stupid. Let's see. Asset magic, yeah, exactly right. Automod did get you on that one, but I allowed it. Nivimi, how's it going? Good to see you. Started with the C++, even though I learned programming with basic flavor syntax coming from C++ helped quite a bit to isolate the C++ isms away from me and fall back to good old procedural imperative code. You mean isolating C++ isms away from when you started using C more? I gotcha. Okay. Sikelos, Automod, and you do have a troubled past. Yes, it's true. Braden, I'm glad to have you here. You got to run though. Have a good one, and we'll see you in the future. Thanks for dropping by. Appreciate it. Okay, so what we'll do is now we'll say offset plus equals size of binary asset header. Now, the other thing that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to load up, I'm going to load up the JavaScript file again because I believe the whole header size was, this is the DB header, right? So we don't actually have a structure for this, which I guess is fine. But we do need to, read all of this data, right? So these are all uint32s, I believe, all the way down. Yes. Oh, I forgot to re-enable this. Okay. So DB header read. All right. So I guess I'm just going to extract these to local integers first, and then move them to properties if and when I need to actually keep them. Yeah, I think that's fine. Okay, so u32 item field count equals 0, and then we're going to do k copy memory. So the destination is going to be the address of item field count. The source is going to be, let's see. We want to do, let me think about this for a second. We want binary assets. Content, right? So we want to do binary asset content plus offset, right? And then we want to copy the size of u32. I feel like we didn't do that here correctly. This should be content. That would have been kind of nasty to figure out if I'd not caught that. All right. So this is how we're essentially going to extract these properties, right? And so for now, I guess I'll do also a k debug, and we'll do item field counts equals item field count, right? And this is going to be a way for us to verify that we haven't done something stupid when it comes to setting up the actual ItemDB. All right. So I'm basically going to, you know what, actually, no, I'll just do this. We also need to do offsets plus equals size of u32. Right, so after each field that we read, that's essentially the way we're going to do it, right? So we need item field count, then we need item count, right? So that's just going to be item counts, item counts, item counts, and item counts. All right, the next one is going to be item data block size. Actually, I guess we'll do item data block as one word, size. Item data block size, and then item data block size, right? So we'll read those in. And then also the header information for the strings, right? So we'll do, we'll get the language counts. So language counts, and then we'll get the string counts. All right, and then we'll get the, let's see, string data block size. Right, and we'll do that here and here. And let's see, data block size. Okay. And actually, before we do anything else, let's test to make sure that the actual header stuff reads incorrectly, right? Because that's kind of imperative that we get that right. Because we're going to have to use this header stuff to generate the sizes of arrays that are needed in the ItemDB. So I guess that means we probably need to hook up this game init ItemDB next. Demon, good evening. Good to see you. How's the DB going? We are loading it into C code now, or at least we're working on getting it loaded. We're not there yet, but we're working on it. It's been 2 weeks now refactoring my entire engine, and now I only have 2 allocations in the entire engine. Nice. That's the way to do it. 1 arena and 1 giant memory block for persistent stuff. Yeah, that's the way to do it, right? That's the way we've done it here, essentially. The only other allocations that can happen in my stuff are some platform things that have to happen before I initialize the memory system, but there's not much of that stuff. So thank you for the follow, by the way. Memory usage goes over my... If memory usage goes over, my engine will crash, and I'll need to up the memory requirement for whatever system, whatever. Yep, that's exactly the way mine works, too. And I'm actually eventually going to add some detailed statistics as to how much each of the systems are using, etc. We're just not there yet. What are you using for your graphics lib? We're not using a graphics lib per se. We're using Vulkan as our graphics API. Yeah, and so that's in our renderer backend. So right now we're using Vulkan. We do have plans for Direct 3D and Metal as well. Yeah, so it's going to support multiple. First time chatter, by the way, welcome. And I do appreciate the follow. All right, so we need game init ItemDB. So I feel like this probably needs to happen fairly early in the sequence, maybe even during boot. Yeah. Probably in here somewhere. I don't know if it's going to have to happen before or after game constants, but I feel like the database load is going to have to be fairly soon. So let's go ahead and do the ItemDB like right here, right? So let's do ItemDB. What did I call that again? Game init ItemDB. Game init ItemDB. And we're just going to pass app to that, right? And I guess we could get a little bit fancy here and we can do kinfo. Initializing ItemDB. And then, you know, done, whatever. We probably ought to... The only thing about this is because of the way the asset system works, I can't necessarily return a Boolean here because this doesn't return success or failure, right? So we probably ought to change that at some point, but for right now, I guess we're just going to have to roll with it, right? I guess if we have issues with this, instead of returning, maybe we ought to do fatal errors here, which will trigger a breakpoint, right? Okay, so if we do that, oh, we didn't use data block size or DB. Yeah, that makes sense. Let me just do this. Oops. Just so this winds up being used. And then it was this one that was saying it wasn't used. So I guess we probably ought to do, I suppose we ought to be checking that anyways. That's fair enough. If not data block size. Loaded item DB file does not have the expected data block, not the expected, does not have a data block. Okay. We shall debug. And what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to come down here and I'm just going to set a breakpoint. Like here. Yeah, that should be fine. All right. Oh, actually I see a bug. This should not happen. Oh, wait a minute. Did we actually... Yeah, this should probably happen, I guess, here, after we've gotten past all of the required stuff, which means this can also go here. Okay. Memory block. Okay. All right, cool. So, source file does not exist to be imported. Oh, that's because I'm a dingus. So, any guesses on what we missed? We are requesting an asset of type binary, synchronous, called ItemDB, from the Shadows of Illumina package. What did we not do before that? We did not add it to the asset manifest. So let's pop that over here. And I'm actually going to put this towards the top of the list. We're going to call this ItemDB. And we actually have another problem, which is this ItemDB binary file here that is used by the item editor, right? Has to exist here for easy reloading for this tool, right? However, we also need it to exist. We also need it to exist in here somewhere. So one thing that we could do, we could cheat. And we could say, maybe we go up a folder and then go into tools, item ed, and ItemDB bin. Or we could create a symbolic link. I think I'm going to go the cheat method for now. And we'll do the symlink later. So we'll do tools, item editor, and then we want ItemDB.bin. Okay, so that should add that. I shouldn't need to recompile. Should be able to just run this. Node deserializer configured for type binary. Really? So it did find it. I guess we've not loaded a binary asset yet. That's kind of interesting. No deserializer configured for asset type binary. Okay, did we not write a binary asset deserializer? I guess we didn't. Let's see. Still on Linux, yes. Let's see. Same due to Zig's comp time stuff. I can have... Wait, I can in debug have a different allocator for each system that references the same memory block and track stats. Yeah, that makes sense. Also, due to Zig, if memory leaks, it shows me exactly which line the link happened, so that's nice. Actually, I have some ideas for our allocator here that I'm actually going to wind up doing something very similar that should help us with that. Been playing around with Raylib and Odin for my adventure into game programming. Awesome. Well, good luck. I can't speak for Odin, but I've heard it's decent to work with. So is debugging C and NeoVim not a great experience? It's not. I tried it, and I wasn't really a fan, to be honest. I got lots of situations, especially when you're working multi-threaded, where it just did not like it whatsoever. Make the package symlink. If you do a relative symlink, it should persist across imports. Though don't know if symlink is cross-platform. So I don't know if you can check a symlink into Git. You know, I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I've never tried it. And then, would that work on Mac, Windows, and Linux? I don't know. You can. You have it in your company repo. Okay. But is it cross-platform is the other question. Because I know the way that paths work are very different, especially between Windows and Unix-based. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, Mac and Linux, I could see that working the exact same. I'll have to try that. I've never tried it that way. Yeah. Odin is pretty great. Yeah, I've heard good things about it. Don't know about Windows, though. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll try it. Okay, so no deserializer configured for asset type binary. Well, isn't that fine? That would be correct, actually. It seems. Didn't we... Oh, we have it right here. KS at binary deserialize. Why is it? Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Why are we doing that? That's a copy pasta, I think. This should be... text, I think. I think that's what that issue is. Okay. All right, here we go. So, okay, the magic number came across correctly. The file version is 1. The file data block size is 1110. Okay. Did we actually have that in the... I don't remember if we actually output that in... Come back here. Yeah, 11, 10. Okay. So that matches. Field count is that. Item count is 4. So that matches. Language count is 3. String count is 8. String data block size is 702. I don't remember if we output that or not. Yes, right here. Yep. Okay. Cool. Language count is undefined still. Why didn't I fix that? Oh, that's why. This should be get. There we go. Okay. All right, cool. So it looks like our header is actually loading correctly. So all of our not only our binary file header stuff, but our actual our ItemDB header looks correct as well. So what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to use these numbers here, like the language count, the string count, the item count, to allocate the arrays, or at least, I guess we don't have to allocate the arrays for the items. We can just essentially point to that spot in memory and cast it to the correct type, and we'll essentially have the same thing. Okay. X3, how's it going? Good to see you again. Hope you're doing well. All right, so we have that fixed. I should probably check in this bug separately, this bug fix separately, because that is an engine bug fix. We can do that a little bit later, though. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to want to do, now that we have all this header data, is, I can get rid of this now, let's see, so DB items, and then we have all of, it's going to be interesting to see if this works or not, if I'm completely honest, because we're going to have to make sure that all of the fields are of the right type and in the right order, but we should be able to. We should be able to. If we set this to a pointer, we should be able to say db items equals binary asset content plus offset. And of course that's not gonna like that, right? So that's gonna be db items pointer, right? We'll need to validate this type again against what we have here. So we should probably do that really quickly. Okay. So we have, oh, we're already screwed. We have, I'm gonna have to copy this separately, because we only need from here down. Which actually, I would actually argue we don't need this. And total count. Total counts we could actually put here. Instead. Then these things will line up. So we have item types, string name IDs, right? These are all U32s. Currency, I believe, is a type def for U32 along with value. So costs and values. Let's see. Quality ID. Yep, so that's the item quality. We may have to... You know what, we should probably use U32s for these instead. Because I suspect that these enumerations are actually going to wind up being 8 bytes apiece, not 4. So we'll use U32 for that. And we'll just, I guess, have to cast whatever we need, right? So currency and item quantity is fine, because those are already the correct types, right? So that's fine. So quality, weight, that's right. We said this has to be a uint32, right? So this has to be a u32. Note, divide by 100. There was a couple of those because we're not storing anything in floats. I forgot about that, right? So we'll have to do note, divide by 100, right? So we have, let's see, quality, weight, unique count, use effect ID, use effect string ID, max charge counts, which in this case we are doing a U32 here. I mean, I suppose I could change this to use a U8, but I think I'm just going to change everything here to use 32-bit numbers to simplify our life a little bit. So cooldowns, then we have equipment class, right? So this is going to be I32, right? Because this can have negatives. Equipment effect ID, those are unsigned. String effect ID should also be unsigned. And then these string effects, these are all going to be U32s. Max damage, min damage, and max damage should both be U32s. Attack rate is also going to be stored as a U32, but divide by 100. And then additional 0, we're actually treating that as a U32 as well. Okay, so these should align. So this is essentially the layout that the file uses. So if we did everything right in writing this out here, we should essentially get a list of what these look like. Okay. So essentially, what we should be able to do is use the memory that's already there. It's a void pointer. We should probably cast this to that just to be on the safe side. So this essentially should be filled out directly with what's in the file, right? So I guess probably what we should do, so that I can easily set a breakpoint here after that's been set. we will put a breakpoint here and run. Item's default size is 4 bytes, and that's what I couldn't remember, but like I feel like if I rely on that, that's gonna bite me in the ass for sure. Will that cast work since it's a bunch of pointers? I'm thinking / hoping it will, because, well, let's see. I guess what I need is, like, if I do db items, and I guess let's go with, I don't know, values 1. Okay, so that did not work. But let me think about why that might not have worked. So essentially the way that this should be laid out, right? These aren't actually pointers, these are arrays. So the way that this is laid out in memory, the way it should be laid out in memory, is you essentially have type, then name, description, for however many items are in there. So these are basically, and then you index into these arrays by the item ID. But you need to assign the pointers individually. See, and that's what I was hoping to kind of get around. As I was hoping I didn't have to do that, but I think I'm going to have to, which kind of sucks. I was hoping that would just work, but I wasn't sure, because I've never actually tried to do that before. Yeah, and I think that's exactly what's happening, Diamond. So, essentially what I'm going to have to do is... essentially, I'm going to have to do this number, right? So I'm going to have to do db items, and the first thing is going to be item, types, is going to be equal to, let's see, we want... I guess we can say let's get the start is this. Let's see, what did we do here? Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to do, so like start and then plus field index, which is gonna be 0 in this case. And then times our item count, times size of U32 plus field offset, which is let me think, which is also going to be I times 4. So I is also wait a minute. No, I don't need field offset, I don't think. I think it's just this. I think. I'm not sure I've got that right, but let's see. All right, so we'll do, I'll do types, and then I'll do name string ID, I'll do a few of them. Description, string IDs, and then cost. I'll just do these for now. Costs, right? So that's 3. Okay. See if that's right. I'm not 100% confident that it is. Oh, I should have done this. Just for my Let's see, did I get that right this time? I don't think so. It's just previous file ID pointer plus length of previous field array times size of previous field. Yeah, so the size is always going to be 4 because everything in this is integers. Previous file, yeah, so that's why I'm saying, like, I can do, so it's going to be start, and then this, it should essentially be that, which I think is actually the same thing. So it should be, in this case, it's the first thing, right? And then times item counts times U32, right? So this contains, this is essentially, actually, this one doesn't even need that. This is actually just start. Because that's the first thing, right? And then this one's going to be start, plus this, right? So it's item count times U32, which is, the size of each individual field, times 1. Because all of the fields are the same size. We can get away with this, I think. I could also do, I could do, like, the address of DB items types plus, oh wait, I might need to, no, this should work. Name string IDs equals types plus 4 times num items. Yeah, but that, in theory, is the same as what I've done here. And then string description IDs, name IDs times 4. Yeah, but that should also be the same as doing this. Where this number is essentially the, yeah. I suppose I could do, well, it's still going to be, let me try it this way first. I don't know if that's right. The stride of a void is also 1 by, do you have to cast it? Didn't I? Oh, yeah, I think you might be right. This should be, let's do a U8 here. I think the stride of a void is 1, but technically size of, I don't know which one it goes by, actually. But we probably should do it but this way to make it a little bit more explicit, right? And then we could just do this. Yeah, U8 is much safer, I think. Yeah. And that's usually the way I do it otherwise. So I'll do U8s for that. And then oops, completely typed that backwards. And then this, and then go to the end and close these off. Oh, I typed U8, that should be U32. Dingus. Okay, that doesn't seem right either. Now, this all assumes that I got it right in the file, which I might not have. Okay, that might be correct, but we didn't do values yet, so let me do costs. I think it is correct, because I think the cost of the second item is 15. I think we did get it right. So the second item would be this health potion, right? Which the cost is 15. Cool. So I think we did get it right. Awesome. Let me close that. So that was one of the reasons that I chose to like do all of these by, or all of the items as integers, because it just makes it much easier to load this data in that way. Yeah, I think it was just casting. I'm thinking that's all it was. Let's see. All right, this is kind of repetitive and poopy, and I don't like it. So, I might wind up changing this, but macro time, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Okay. As much as I hate it. So let's do item field offset X. And then we're not going to have U32s for everything, no. So I'm actually going to do void there. This is probably okay, because I know all the item offsets, or all the item fields are going to be U32, so I guess this is probably going to be fine. But then we can do item field offsets. Item field offsets, then 1. And then I suppose I could just do U32. I actually don't even need to do that though, because it just auto casts. Item field offsets 2. Three. Yeah, that's much simpler. So the next one is, what is it? Value. I suppose I could like auto increment this too, but that's kind of a risky thing to do with macros though. Let me not do that. Quality ID. So that's just gonna be qualities. And then weights. Why do I feel like I've already bollocksed this? I don't think so. Okay. So weights. unique counts. You know what? I'm going to do the numbers afterwards. Use effect IDs. Use string IDs. Max charge counts. Cooldowns. Equipment class. Equipment slot, I think, is the next one. Yep. And then equip effect ID. Equipment effect string ID. Strength effects. Agility effects. Mind. Oops. Mind effect. Vitality effects. And then I think it's min, max, attack rate, and additional. Min damage. Max damage. Attack rates. And finally, additional 0. All right, so this needs to be 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23. So that lines up with the 24 fields that we have. So that should all be good. Could just copy the struct and run a vim macro to generate all the lines. I could have done that. That would have made sense. It makes too much sense, though. I have to be careful about you know, being too productive or making too much sense, because that goes against dingus-oriented programming. Things like this is where AI is very useful. Just write me the 20 lines of grunt work. Yeah, you're not lying there. Forgive my question, but what is ItemDB? Is it your own library? It's not a library of sorts. It's a item database. And it's actually kind of poorly named, I guess. But essentially what it is it's a custom database that we're building for our RPG. And most of what it handles right now is items. So items in the game, right? So consumables like a health potion, or, you know, weapons like a rusty dagger, or key items like a skeleton key, right? And these all have their various different properties and things like, you know, weapons have, you know, various effects and properties that it adds. You have you know, your health potion that has an effect when you use it, that kind of stuff. And then it also manages strings. And the reason it manages strings is because... Oh, I hate when you get a sneeze stuck in your sinuses. Oh, it's the worst. Anyway, the reason we have strings in here is because we have situations like this, where we want to have like a replace token, where we say, you know, this particular string is for the health potion, right? So it heals 4, and then whatever the use effect health is when we set up use effects. And so what will happen is in the game will replace this token with, say, 50 or whatever. And so this would get queried if we're using English, right? But if you switched to Japanese, it would look different, right? And so we're also using this to handle localized strings as well. And so right now it's just items and strings in here, but eventually we're going to have all kinds of stuff that this database is going to provide for us, right? And I use the term database loosely, right? Because it's not like a NoSQL database. It's certainly not SQL. It is a flat file database, a binary database. This whole thing gets exported to a binary file that we are then reading in here in the actual game code. And so that binary file kind of just looks like this. So this is what the ItemDB is. I initially called it ItemDB because I was only thinking it was going to handle items, but I think it's actually going to wind up handling a lot more than that. So I think we're going to have to rename it at some point. But this is highly game specific, so it's not part of the engine. It's in the game code because it's highly specific to the game. We're not going to wind up making... I don't want to make a generic version of this because I want to keep it very tight and very... very specific to this type of data. We know the types of data this is going to hold because that allows us to make it as fast as possible. So I hope that helps. Basically a management system like a CMS, almost, yeah. Will the map editor be there? No, so map, like zones and stuff will be external to that. Yeah, that's completely, we've got different systems to handle that. Would be cool for modding. Yeah, I mean, if I decide to support modding, maybe I could release this tool, but I didn't develop this tool with that in mind, for sure. I made this tool in the browser because, this is not really a tool I was planning on releasing, right? It's just a tool specifically for this game. So I don't know. I'm not planning on doing modding support now, but maybe. I'm not completely ruling it out, but for now I don't have it planned. But you're not wrong. It would be good for that. Okay. So I guess let me just build this real quick, and we can verify if we are in fact reading this incorrectly. We can just spot check a couple of the fields and have our answer, right? So, oh, interesting. So costs, that looks wrong now. So do we mess something up? Did the casting mess something up? Oops, values. That should be values. We might have messed something up. Because that was working a minute ago, I thought. Let's see, what else? I guess we could look at weights. Yeah, okay. So, something in our macro, I suspect. We got something wrong up here. I'm wondering if it's actually this. Let me do a U32. That should not matter, but it might. And then we'll have to cast specifically the types that on 1981 and 1982. These two guys. And it is storming like crazy outside right now, so I think it's a good thing that we're getting towards the end of the stream, because I have a feeling that's not going to end well here in a minute. Okay, we did have this working before, so what changed? Do you find the tooling development to be more interesting to you or the game code? To be honest, I don't know yet. In general, when I'm making games, I find game code pretty interesting. So it's probably going to wind up being that, but like I'm going to be switching between tooling and the engine and game code so often. I'm going to be doing all of it, right? So I hope I don't get bored with any of it, that's for sure. Okay. How is this different than what we had before? This is literally lifted from... Oh. I'm surprised that... no, that should have worked, because when this is called, start does exist. Right? So, what does this expand to? That looks right to me. Why is that all of a sudden failing? What am I missing? Okay, if I do... Yeah, I did have offset of 1. Let me think. This should be 0, so that should essentially be equivalent. Because I think if I do... That literally expands to what I had before, though. Okay. Well, more than likely, it's probably just some stupid offset issue that I'm thinking. We already have start. I don't know why that's suddenly failing to read that incorrectly. That's a little bit weird to me. You know what? Let's do a clean build. Run this again. This almost looks like it did when we had the casting issue. So how have we gone? How have we... What made us regress? So if I literally take this line, I'm going to go down to, let's say here. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. Right, and I do db items values equals this. Oh. I know what I did. I'm a dum-dum. We are setting db items here. This should not be done. What should happen, and this actually probably shouldn't actually be a pointer now that I think about it. This I think I was actually nuking the data by doing this. Because I was overwriting the block by setting those pointers. Because I was setting the whole thing above. I'll bet it's right now. Yep. That's what it was. Dingus-oriented programming for the loss. Alright. So, with that being said, it looks like we are reading in our stuff correctly. I'll spot check a few things here. Let's check it. Let's check on cooldowns. It's also 15. We'll check, I don't know, the Rusty Dagger, I think, is 2, right? So we'll check, maybe, min damage. And there we go. Yeah, so I think that is reading correctly from the file. Okay, cool. I think we're good. With that being said, it is time to end for me tonight. I do have to get up early for work in the morning. So, we are going to pick somebody to raid. First time chatter, by the way. Hey, how's it going? Welcome. I do want to welcome you. Let's see. Which Linux am I using? Arch, by the way. Yeah, so unfortunately I do have to go. I do have to raid. And I am going to raid. Let's see. Let me search. Oh, I think the person I wanted to raid is not online anymore. Yep. I think that's exactly what happened. I was gonna raid El's Dragoon, but it looks like they logged off. So, let's go ahead and see who's out there. See if I can find something that is kind of related. Maybe even somebody that we haven't raided before. We'll see. Oh, you know what? I got a raid from Spherophoria the other day. Let's go raid him and see what he's up to. All right. Looks like he's working on a Raspberry Pi Pico bootloader. So, yeah, let's check that out. Yeah, thank you guys so much for joining me here. I really appreciate you guys. And join me on the next stream, which will be next week at on Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. If you haven't already, I would appreciate a follow and or subscribe on the YouTube side, just to help me grow the channel and whatnot. But yeah, that's going to do it. Thank you guys for being here, and I will see you guys in the next one. See ya.